Congresswoman, thank you for being here. Obviously, it's been a big day here in Washington. And over at the White House, the people I've been talking to, it's a lot of the fallout from the Vanity Fair interview, the comments from Susie Wiles on the record that they've been defending against. Obviously, the president famously does not drink and never has. But when Susie Wiles compares him and says that he is the personality of an alcoholic, and the way she described that, she meant that he basically has a view that there's nothing he can't do, nothing, zero, nothing. Do you agree with that assessment?
I disagree with that. And we saw the major fallout happen yesterday with his statements on the tragic murder of Rob Reiner and his wife. MAGA faithful reacted big time. And they called it out. It's all over social media. People, his supporters, including myself, we didn't appreciate hearing the president, who himself was shot, and after Charlie Kirk's horrific murder, we didn't appreciate, even if you don't agree with Rob Reiner politically, there was no reason for his statement to be the statement that he made.
Yeah, when he says, I mean, this was in the immediate aftermath of us finding out about Rob Reiner, and obviously now his son has been taken into custody. You've said that his murder was not about politics or political enemies. The president called him bad for our country and said he was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned.
I thought that statement was absolutely, completely below the office of the President of the United States, classless, and it was just wrong. It's a tragic murder. It's a family ripped apart, and from my understanding, what I've seen on the news, it was drug abuse and mental illness. And many families across America deal with family members that are drug addicts or have mental health issues. And I think the president should have responded with compassion and talked about those issues. He didn't have to make it about politics. And I think that was, it was really below what we expect our president to talk like.
It's clearly also really tragic just for the Reiner family.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you have no problem calling out what the president said, but why do you think other Republicans have struggled to do so?
I can't comprehend it, but Caitlin, I'd like to point something out. Just last week, and I think the dam is breaking. Many Republicans may not have called him out, but last week 13 Republicans voted with Democrats to overturn one of President Trump's executive orders, which enabled him to fire federal workers. We also saw Indiana Republicans vote against redistricting. He didn't call any of them traitors and call for primaries against them. But I would like to say that that is a sign where you're seeing Republicans, they're entering the campaign phase for 2026, which is a large signal that lame duck season has begun and that Republicans will go in all in for themselves in order to save their own reelections.
You think the dam is breaking in terms of the president's iron grip of support when it comes to your party?
Absolutely. Those 13 Republicans that voted to take down his executive order last week, literally that same evening put on their tuxedos and their evening ball gowns and went to the White House Christmas party. That's pretty bold.
What do you think? Do you think that message is being received at the White House?
I'm sure it's being received, and there's a lot of pushback happening. You're seeing it all within the conference. And just to be clear, Caitlin, I have a 98% voting record with President Trump. The only places that I've stood against him on are, of course, with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and the discharge petition, against destroying state rights when it comes to making regulation and laws on AI, and then a few other issues like bringing in 600,000 Chinese foreign students, replacing American students, and I'm largely opposed to H-1B visas and visas replacing American workers. So I've only broken from the president in a few places, but he came down on me the hardest. But yet he's got real problems with Republicans within the House and the Senate that will be breaking with him on more things to come.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that you have voted with him as often as you have, if you listen to his recent comments about you, and he was really critical of you when I asked him about you saying that he needs to focus more on domestic issues than foreign issues. That was something that Susie Wiles seemed to agree with in this remarkable on the record interview. She said that there need to be more talks about the domestic economy and less about Saudi Arabia is probably called for. Do you think that's a message that is breaking through with everyone but the president?
Absolutely. While CNN has been talking about affordability, all of a sudden, after Republicans got crushed in that election not too long ago, Fox News is all of a sudden willing to talk about affordability because it is a crisis. And health insurance is the coming crisis that we're trying to work on in the House right now, but they waited too late. Speaker Johnson kept the government shut down for 8 weeks. Not the government, I'm sorry, the House of Representatives kept us out of session for 8 weeks during the government shutdown, but yet we could have been in Washington working day in and day out preparing for this upcoming crisis. In my rural district, I have 75,000 people that are on ACA tax credits. And here's the truth for the Republican Party. The large portion of those 75,000 people are Republican voters. And so this is a real issue, but instead of working hard to come up with a solution. They have waited to the last minute, and we're literally weeks away from those expiring.
Do you think Republicans are going to rue the day that those Obamacare subsidies expire?
It appears to be that way. There's a lot of arguments going on in the conference, and that's been happening all day today on the House floor.
Yeah, it seemed quite tense today between House Speaker Mike Johnson and some of the moderates who want to vote on those Obamacare subsidies. On affordability, the president is going to address the nation tomorrow night. He says to talk about, basically what a great year they've had since he returned to office. Do you want him to hear him say there's no inflation like he did last week, which is not true?
It's not true. Inflation, of course, reached its highest point during the Biden administration, and Americans know that. Inflation has steadied around 2.5%, so he can't say there's no inflation. However, what I would like to see from the president is empathy for Americans. Donald Trump is a billionaire, and he's the president of the United States. When he looks into a camera and says affordability is a hoax and just totally tries to make nothing out of inflation, he's talking to Americans that are suffering and have been suffering for many years now and are having a hard time making ends meet. And so that's not the right message to tell Americans.
So what does he need to say tomorrow night, in your view?
In my view, I think he needs to actually dive all in on America First policies. He needs to keep Air Force One parked in the hangar and stay away from foreign countries. He needs to stop the revolving door of foreign leaders into his White House. He needs to stop embracing Al-Qaeda, ISIS terrorists that were once wanted by the United States, who have now become the Syrian president, and stop calling people like me traitors. He needs to focus on the campaign policies that he promised the American people, not his big donors, not big pharma, not big tech, and not foreign leaders. He needs to focus on the people that stood in line in the freezing rain, the snow, the scorching sun, and all types of weather, and stood on their feet waiting to go into rallies to see him and to hear what he had to say. Those are the people that matter, not the lobbyists, not the big donors, and not the people he wants to have at White House big parties.
You mentioned the few places where you've broken with him, including on the Epstein files and having those released. The DOJ deadline is Friday. And Susie Wiles was actually pretty critical of the Justice Department's handling of this so far. She said there is no client list, and it sure as hell wasn't on Pam Bondi's desk. Why do you think the Attorney General said that it was then?
I'm not sure. I don't have specifics on that, but I've listened to the women themselves. And the women themselves, a smaller portion of them, which is, there's a lot of them. They think there's around 1,000 victims. But a smaller portion of these women say that there is a list of men, rich, powerful men, that they were passed around to. Now, that's a list that they have kept to themselves, frankly, because they're terrified. These women don't have money to pay attorneys if they get sued. Every expense comes out of their own pockets. And after death threats that I've received supporting and keeping my name on the discharge petition, for the first time, I can understand exactly what they've been intimidated by for so many years. So as far as what Susie Wiles and Pam Bondi were talking, I can't speak to specifics on that, but I can speak to what the women have told me.
Do you believe that the president is not in the Epstein files, or that he's in them, but he's not in there for doing anything awful, as Susie Wiles put it? Do you think that that's true?
The women have said that Donald Trump did nothing wrong, and their attorney told us in a closed-door meeting and also told us elsewhere that Donald Trump was the only one that helped them when they went to trial. So I'm believing the words that they spoke.